Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Look, I am absolutely thrilled to have you here because today we are throwing out literally everything you thought you knew about flowers. We're going to be exploring 25 of the rarest, most mysterious, and frankly, most utterly bizarre blooms on the entire planet. We're not talking about the everyday roses or daisies you'd pick up at the local florist. Oh no, these are extraordinary, wild creations that challenge our very traditional ideas of floral beauty. So get ready to have your mind completely blown as we step into nature's strangest playbook. So let's start here. What makes a flower truly beautiful? I mean, usually we picture something incredibly delicate, right? Maybe something like the caterpillar flower, also known as the queen of the night. It's this gorgeous, ephemeral cactus flower from Mexico that only blooms under the cover of moonlight, lasts for just a few fleeting hours, and then totally vanishes with the dawn. And yeah, that's our standard definition of beauty, but in this explainer, I really want you to reconsider that definition, because as you'll see, nature pushes the boundaries of beauty into some seriously bizarre extremes. And this right here perfectly illustrates exactly what I mean. On one hand, we have our traditional expectations, flowers that smell like sweet perfume. But in nature's bizarre reality, we have flowers that literally smell like rotting flesh. I know, gross, right? But nature's playbook is absolutely packed with deception, chemical warfare, and radical survival tactics. We're going to look at sensory extremes that prove a flower absolutely does not need to be conventionally pretty or sweet to be an absolute marvel of evolution. Now, you might be wondering, does all this weirdness serve a purpose? Well, what's really wild is that some of these bizarre flowers have incredible, surprising utility. Take the shampoo ginger, which is deeply cherished in Hawaiian culture. It grows these vibrant red cones, called bracts, that actually store a fragrant, sudsy liquid. You can literally squeeze it and use it as a natural shampoo, a conditioner, or even a soothing remedy for sunburns. Then, on the other hand, we have the visually mind-bending passionflower. With all its intricate layers of fringed petals, it looks like some kind of alien architecture, but it actually has a long, proven history in traditional medicine as a calming aid for restful sleep. So the big takeaway here? Bizarre forms often hide brilliant functions. Okay, let's dive right into Section 1, Scents of Death and Chocolate. Let's start things off with some extreme chemical warfare. Check out the African starfish flower. It looks exactly like a starfish, complete with thick, fleshy petals covered in these fine little hairs. And then there's the corpse lily, this massive parasitic flower hiding out in the Southeast Asian rainforest that spans nearly a full meter across. Now, despite looking totally different from each other, they share a really shocking trait. They both emit a powerful, completely overwhelming odor of dead, rotting flesh. Why on earth would they do that? Because they aren't trying to attract cute little bees. They are sending out an irresistible dinner bell for flies and beetles. It's literal chemical warfare, perfectly fine-tuned for survival. And this chemical warfare scales up to an absolutely massive level with the titan Arum. This beast holds the Guinness World Record for the tallest bloom, reaching over 10 feet tall. Just try to picture that. But think about the sheer energy that takes. This plant actually alternates between growing just a single leaf and then sitting entirely dormant for years, often 4 to 5 years, just stockpiling energy. When it finally decides to bloom, it unleashes that same horrific rotting corpse scent, but only for a couple of days. If it manages to lure in its pollinators during that tiny window, it produces up to 400 toxic fruits that shift from golden to bright red, which actually provide a vital food source for the native rhinoceros hornbill bird. After all that exhausting work, the plant just goes back to sleep for several more years to gear up to do it all over again. Okay, after all that literal stench, I think we desperately need a sweet contrast, right? Enter the chocolate cosmos. It's a deep red, velvety, daisy-like bloom native to Mexico. Instead of mimicking a rotting corpse, this flower teases the senses in a completely different way. On warm, sunny days, it releases an aroma that smells exactly like vanilla and chocolate. Seriously, no joke. It's this complete sensory experience that proves nature can be wonderfully decadent just as easily as it can be totally horrifying. If you thought smelling like death or chocolate was weird, just wait until you see the flowers playing dress-up to survive. Let's move into Section 2, Masters of Visual Disguise. We've got 3 absolute masters of mimicry right here. First up, the bat flower from Southeast Asia. It has these deep, black, velvety petals that look eerily like bat wings, complete with long, flowing strands that look exactly like whiskers. It lives in deep shade and, amazingly, it can self-pollinate, bypassing the need for insects entirely. Next, we have the hot lips plant from the rainforest of Central and South America. And yeah, those bright red lips aren't actually petals at all. They're protective leaves called bricks, acting as a flashing neon sign to lure in hummingbirds and butterflies. Finally, you have to see the naked man orchid from the Mediterranean. Look closely. Every single cluster on this flower looks like a tiny, playful little man with arms, legs, and even a cheeky little smile. I mean, nature's creativity literally has no bounds here. But, sometimes a brilliant disguise turns into a bit of a tragic mystery. Take the parrot's beak. It's an incredible orange-red flower native to the Canary Islands. And as you can guess, it's shaped perfectly like a tropical bird's beak. But here's the catch. It's a flower waiting for a ghost. It evolved specifically to be pollinated by a certain songbird that is now entirely extinct in that region. Beautifully, though, the plant has shown immense resilience. It's somehow adapted to rely on non-specialist birds like the Canary Islands chiffchaff just to keep its species alive. Talk about a will to survive. Which brings us perfectly to Section 3, Thriving in Extreme Conditions. Let's look at nature's ultimate survivors. I want you to consider this incredible trio of extreme survivors. First, the glory of the snow. This tiny, delicate-looking star-shaped alpine flower literally breaks its way through solid mountain ice and snow to bloom in the freezing early spring. Second, the Pincushion Protea from South Africa. It has this intricate spiral design actually mimicking the Fibonacci sequence. And get this, it actually needs devastating wildfires to clear out competing vegetation so its deep roots can spark new growth. And third, the desert pea. A vivid scarlet flower with a dark central eye that completely thrives in the utterly scorched, arid riverbeds of the Australian outback. Freezing ice, raging fire, and scorched earth. These plants conquer it all. But survival in extreme conditions can also take a really dark turn, as we see with the blue Puya. Towering up to 6 feet tall in the harsh, rocky Andes Mountains, it boasts this rare, stunning turquoise blossom. It draws in hummingbirds with all its rich nectar. But there is a dark secret hiding down at its base. The blue Puya is surrounded by vicious, thorny, spiky leaves. Because it lives in an environment with incredibly poor soil, it actually traps small animals in its base. As those animals, decompose, the plant gathers the vital nutrients it desperately needs to survive. It is quite literally a gorgeous turquoise trap. For our final section, we're going to lower the energy just a bit. Section 4. Rare, endangered, and elusive. Let's reflect on the fragility of nature's strangest creations. Just the number 2. That's it. That is the total number of known locations on the entire planet where the Middlemist red camellia currently survives. This gorgeous, deep pink, rose-like flower was brought from China to England over 200 years ago, and despite surviving the intense bombing and complete upheaval of World War II, today it exists only in a botanical garden in New Zealand and at the historic Chiswick House in England. Just 2 places. It's a really sobering reminder of exactly how close we are to losing some of these marvels forever. And here is another staggering number for you. 15. That is the number of years that the ivory-white ghost orchid went entirely unseen in English woodlands before it was recently rediscovered. 15 years. It is a true botanical ghost. It has absolutely no leaves at all. It relies completely on pale roots that camouflage perfectly against tree bark. You really only know it's there when its spectral white flowers seem to just magically float, suspended in mid-air in the dark forest. It is hands down one of the most elusive plants on Earth. Let's look at 2 more that are teetering right on the brink of extinction. The Hawaiian Koki'o is the rarest red hibiscus in the world. In fact, it was thought to be completely extinct until a single plant was rediscovered in the 1900s. Today, it only survives because of intense, highly protected conservation efforts. And then there's the yellow and purple lady slipper orchid. It's this incredibly delicate woodland flower shaped exactly like a tiny shoe. Historically, human collectors paid absolute fortunes for just a single plant. And sadly, that obsessive overcollection pushed it right to the very edge of vanishing forever. And this brings us to the absolutely breathtaking jade vine in the Philippines. I want you to picture this. A massive vine climbing 60 feet up into the rainforest canopy, dropping these elegant, cascading clusters of flowers that look exactly like bright turquoise, luminous grapes. It's stunning. But its survival depends on a bizarre and extremely fragile partnership. Its blossoms are perfectly shaped to attract nocturnal bats, who hang upside down to drink its nectar, unknowingly transferring pollen in the process. But as the Philippine rainforests face relentless deforestation, this 60-foot marvel and the bats that keep it alive are rapidly running out of time and space.
Well, that wraps up our explainer for today. We've seen that nature's playbook is, without a doubt, wonderfully bizarre. From flowers that smell like rotting flesh just to attract flies, to orchids shaped like tiny smiling men, to massive plants that literally trap animals to survive. But we've also seen how alarmingly fragile this wildly adapted system really is. So I want to leave you with a question to think about. Which of these bizarre floral adaptations completely blew your mind? Take a moment to reflect on that, and let it spark your curiosity to learn even more about the hidden wonders growing all around us. Thank you so much for joining me today, and keep learning.